Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. This is the Texas PACE Authority's T5 training for December and wrapping up the year. We call it T5 because back during COVID, and we kind of moved from in-person workshops to virtual workshops, we decided to have a regular event. And so this was TPA's third Thursday at 2 training. I realize we're a little off there, but to avoid the holidays, we're sticking with the Thursdays at 2. So today, what we're going to cover and highlight is just a quick review of some of the activity and changes in 2024 that we've seen organizationally and in the marketplace, and then a outlook for 2025. And a fairly brief agenda today, and then we'll have some opportunities for Q&A. We'll keep an eye on that. So if you do have questions and answers, drop those in the Q&A section, and we'll monitor those and get to those before we adjourn a little bit later this afternoon. So today's recording, everybody is muted and the video is disabled. So do use the Q&A at the bottom of the screen or wherever the control buttons are on your screen, not the chat. If you're an attendee today, you'll receive a survey after the webinar, just to ask if the timing was right, if we covered topics that are relevant, how we can improve things. You'll also get a copy of the slide deck with links embedded. You'll see in several of the slides there are some links, some hyperlinks, so you'll have that for a resource later and to share with colleagues if they're not able to attend in person today. And then also, if you are an engineer or other professional that needs professional development hours or continuing ed hours, we can send you a certificate for an hour, PDH, for attending today, if that's something that's useful for you. So when you get that email as follow-up, you can ask for that then. And then last, as far as housekeeping, this webinar is being recorded, and it will be available on TPA's YouTube website, or on website linked to our YouTube channel. So as a record there, again, to share with others later or to go back to as a resource, we'll have it there. So that's pretty much the housekeeping for today, and we'll jump right into it. So I'm Dub Taylor. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Texas PACE Authority, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Brian Adams. Brian is the Texas Managing Director for PACE Equity. PACE Equity is a nationwide PACE specialty lender, and I'm going to turn the presentation over to Brian about midway through, and he's going to share with us some perspective from a lender's standpoint on 2025 and activity and trends and so forth. So our agenda today, looking at the registrations and the folks that are on, it looked like some familiar names that probably know the PACE industry and about PACE, and then it looked like some unfamiliar names that may not be as familiar with PACE. So I've decided to put a little PACE 101 condensed version at the front end of this as a reminder of what we're talking about. Then we're going to jump into review of 2024, the 25 outlook. I'm going to share some resources, and then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. So moving right into it. So why PACE? Well, this is the problem that PACE was really designed to help address, and that is that owners know, property owners know they can save money over the long haul by investing in more efficient MEP systems. But these can be expensive and disruptive, these upgrades, particularly if the space is occupied at the time. And there are always competing priorities and budgets. And typically replacing air conditioners and electrical and plumbing and other systems just don't rise to the top until they become an emergency. And so it's hard for owners to kind of get ahead of the curve on optimizing their buildings and reinvesting through upgraded MEP systems. And the result of that is, when a chiller goes out or air conditioning goes out, it's usually in July. It's not in December. When a heating system goes out, it's in the winter, not in the summer. And so this failed equipment winds up being replaced on a emergency basis without much ability to optimize from a systems perspective. So it's just a rip and replace, one-to-one replacement. Usually that, because it's unscheduled, comes at a premium cost, and you may not get the equipment you're looking for because you have to have what's available, not what can be pre-ordered or spec'd. So there's a efficiency loss that happens just with failing equipment. And then a new construction, every new construction project, how many of y'all have been involved with, stream of new construction projects that are on time and under budget, right? I mean, it can happen, but it rarely happens. What always happens though is there's something that happens, change orders, whatever, you're running into situations that weren't anticipated, and costs, the budget gets challenged, and the things that get cut are the things that are behind the walls that you can't see. So, tenant amenities, the nicer finishes, even landscaping, things like that, the visible part, the aesthetic part, those don't get cut. Things the mechanical rooms do. And so that then has a lasting negative effect on operation of that building, because now you've made a decision at the front end that goes to haunt the building for 20, 25 years while you have less efficient systems. So PACE was really designed to help address all of these challenges. In PACE, the solution, or a solution, not the silver bullet, but a great solution, Property Assess Clean Energy. It's a financing tool that can provide 100% funding for energy efficiency, water conservation, and distributed generation projects. These are projects all on the customer side of the meter. This is private financing secured by special local assessment. We like to say it's like a single parcel PID. So it's like a property improvement district, but it's initiated owner by owner versus petitioning a local government for a PID. State authorized under Local Government Code Chapter 399, and then cities and counties around the state establish this one by one if they decide this makes sense for them. Eligible properties, this is in Texas, are any commercial property, including nonprofits. So we've had churches, houses of worship, other nonprofits utilize PACE. So commercial building is the key. Ownership is not the key necessarily. Multifamily, so 5 units or more, and then industrial, including manufacturing and agricultural. So about the only type of property in Texas that is not eligible for PACE is single family residential and residential up to 4 units. And how PACE can be used. So obviously, as I've addressed already, there's a need for retrofitting MEP systems. This can happen either as those systems fail. There are, performance challenges, temperature control, indoor comfort issues, moisture, etc. Or if the building is being repurposed, we're seeing, some commercial buildings being repurposed for residential. If the plate of the footprint is right for that, so that requires a lot of MEP work. PACE can be used for that and has been used for that. On-site generation, we're starting to see quite a bit of solar, on-site solar in Texas. It's a pretty easy kind of plug and play. If you have a demand charge on an electric bill and you have on-site solar and maybe storage, battery storage, you could really reduce that demand charge in a cost-effective way. We see PACE used in new construction, and technically under the Texas statute enabling PACE, PACE cannot be used for greenfield new construction. However, if there is a structure or some evidence of development on what's otherwise a greenfield, then PACE can be used to finance the higher efficiency above code systems in new construction. So again, kind of getting ahead of the curve from an efficiency standpoint. And then if a project has been completed and it otherwise would have met the PACE technical criteria, and today the standard is if it's within 24 months of completion or CO, then PACE can be used to refi or recapitalize that project and cover the cost of the PACE eligible measures. So property owners benefit through PACE in a couple of ways, and we like to say we're using tomorrow's savings to pay for today's upgrades, or as it says here, pay for today's upgrades with tomorrow's savings. It's improving the asset value in a way that's cost effective and cash flow positive, and increasing net operating income. And how it compares to conventional equipment financing is that In a conventional equipment loan, the loan term typically is pretty short, 5 years, on average. And so all of that repayment and debt service occurs in the very first part of the project's life. That means that from a cash flow standpoint, the owner's upside down. This doesn't make a lot of sense, and that's why these investments aren't happening. PACE, however, using the assessment mechanism to secure a longer term loan means that the owner is cash flow positive day one and throughout the term of the loan. So that's really the key. And again, as a substitute for equipment financing or mezzanine debt or higher cost capital in the stack, we're seeing PACE used all over the place in those types of instances. All right, so that's kind of the brief PACE 101. So I'm going to go to a quick review of 2024. So the PACE market in Texas, I mentioned that this is a local option program. So while the state law allows cities and counties to adopt PACE, it takes deliberate actions and a couple of steps for them to do that. And so Texas PACE Authority serves now over 100 cities and counties across the state. This map, what it shows, if there's a shaded county, it means that county has established PACE at the county level, and we are their administrator and provide their really outsourced PACE administration for them. If there's a star, it means this has been set up at the city level. And then if there's a little light bulb, it means there's a project there. So that's the legend for the map there. So about 3/4 of the state, the 3/4 of the state's population is now covered, and we have this map on our website that's linked there. I should say too that this is as of December 2024. There are a handful of new jurisdictions, particularly counties, that are in process of establishing PACE, and probably in the first quarter of 2025, there'll be some more shaded counties and probably a few more stars on this map. So the projects that have been supported through PACE that we have administered, almost 90 projects total, about $500 million. We're kind of at that magic threshold. And so you can see that this has been large projects, on average, and a few smaller ones too. These have been in the urban centers, the MSAs. They've been in rural areas as well, all types of properties. Office, mixed use, nonprofit, as I said earlier, a lot of hospitality, great fit for hospitality, multifamily, even some parking garages with lighting retrofits, things like that, retail, and then a couple of manufacturing as well. These have involved energy efficiency, water conservation upgrades, distributed generation, again, and demand reduction projects. And the smallest project to date has been 68,000, the largest 48 million. So a pretty wide range of projects. For 2024, some awards and recognitions. So we were pleased to see that 2 projects that we were involved in with PACE received this recognition through the Michelin Guide. So as part of their new key hotel designation, the Hotel Swexen in Dallas, which is a recent project, received this designation for Michelin. And then a few years ago, the Plaza Hotel Pioneer Park in El Paso, downtown El Paso, one of the original Hilton properties, was a PACE project, and that also received that recognition. As an organization, we were honored to receive from the Hunt Institute at SMU the Texas Impact Enterprise Award this year. Our president, Charlene Heidinger, we were proud to see her receive the Lifetime Achievement Award from Texas A&M's Energy Summit, Texas Energy Summit, held at the Capitol last month. And then an interesting award. Texas PACE Authority is really an 11-year-old startup organization. We consider ourselves really still a startup. And so we seek advice and support wherever we can. And the University of Texas has what's called a venture mentoring service. And we have been plugged into that for a couple of years. And actually our team of mentors this year, just last week, was awarded the best mentor team. So some awards and recognition that we're honored to be part of in 2024. Couple of changes too, from the staffing perspective, recognizing that Texas is a really big state and we need boots on the ground in different parts of the state. We've added a couple of new folks. Jack Belt is based in the greater San Antonio area and covers sort of the southern part of the state. And then Mariah Peak, Jack started with us, I guess, in January of 2024. And then Mariah Peak is our newest addition. She joined us just about a month ago, and she's based in the DFW area, and she's our North Texas kind of boots on the ground person. And then mid-summer, Dr. Teresa Smith was brought in to be the director of PACE transactions, sort of a single point of contact and accountability for all the transaction work. And she has done a great job in identifying efficiencies and process improvements and working with the lenders and owners to make sure the process is as smooth as it can be. Our whole team is linked there. Some of the key projects this year were in the hospitality area. I mentioned that great fit for PACE, commercial office building, which is kind of bread and butter, and then a fair amount of multifamily. And then manufacturing is eligible, and I said manufacturing different than industrial. Industrial often is lumped in with commercial being, warehouse space, but this is actually industrial manufacturing. And this is a, relatively small project compared to some others. But the interesting thing about it, this is a cabinet manufacturing facility in East Texas, in Marshall. And Harrison County set up its PACE program earlier in the year to provide support to this owner in this project in particular. And what they did is replace not only, HVAC, lighting, building shell, kind of those conventional improvements, but they also moved from a very manual set of processes where they were using routers and individuals to basically, make cabinet doors, and went instead to a more additive process that involved big machines that used, heat to bond the elements together of the doors and then coat them and this sort of thing. And that sort of equipment, if it is permanently installed and has an efficiency benefit, is something that is PACE eligible as well. So it's really the first time we'd seen that. And so manufacturing is a great opportunity, and oftentimes overlooked because it's not just the walls and the building itself and the building shell itself. It can be these large manufacturing equipment components that are part of that too. Okay, so that's sort of looking back, and looking forward into 2025. I wanted to let Brian take over here. And so PACE Equity, as I mentioned, is a national PACE specialty lender, a lot of experience, a lot of transactions, active all over the country. They are one of the lenders that you will see on our service provider directory, which is looks like that below, and I'll provide a link later. If you click on the little dollar sign that says lenders, it'll bring up the list of lenders. And you'll see that I think we have currently 32 lenders that we have vetted and approved, and PACE Equity is one of them. We, as an administrator, we cannot recommend a lender, a contractor, or anyone else, but we can provide information as a resource. And the reason that I asked Brian to join us today is that of all of the lenders on our list, we've had more PACE Equity transactions than others. And so we figured this would be a good opportunity for Brian to talk a little bit about, again, from a lender's perspective, what he sees as far as, trends and opportunities going forward. So I'll stop talking, and Brian, why don't you take over?
Sure. Thanks, Dub. I appreciate the introduction and the opportunity to join the webinar and chat with you. So as Dub mentioned, I'm with PACE Equity. We're based out of Milwaukee. We've been in the industry since kind of the inception of PACE, done over 300 plus transactions. And then I headquarter here in Dallas and kind of spearhead originations for the state. We have, other people like myself spread out throughout the United States, to run originations in the local markets. So I've been in Dallas in debt and equity for 20 plus years as a CMBS lender, agency lender, as an in-house mortgage broker for IPA Capital Markets and Marcus Millichap. And so my background's on the finance side. And like a lot of people, I had heard about PACE, but didn't know a whole lot about it until I joined PACE Equity about 1.5 years ago, just recognizing the opportunity for tremendous growth in this product that's still relatively in its infancy. And so, and we've seen that growth. So for PACE Equity, we've done over the last year about a 75% increase in originations, from the year prior. And of that increase, or of the total production, approximately 1/4 of that production in transaction, number of transactions and transaction volume has been in the state of Texas. So, certainly blessed to be in an active PACE market in a business-friendly state, and very good opportunities for us to take a look at. So I'll just kind of circle back maybe to the slide you had showed earlier, Dub, that was basically the 3 uses for PACE, and I can kind of give you some ideas of what we're seeing and where I think we'll see more in the future. And so just starting with new construction, PACE was actually the innovator for using PACE dollars for construction financing. We did the first new construction development deal using PACE. That was a Weston in Milwaukee. And then as Deb mentioned, Texas over the last 2 years has kind of opened up the ability to do new construction in Texas by kind of the revisiting the interpretation of the PACE legislation. So it's no secret that right now in the current interest rate environment that bank lending or development capital is relatively soft. Bank balance sheets are full, and they're at a lower leverage point. They haven't had the payoff, so they have less available capital. And so we're coming in as gap capital, where as a creative source in the capital stack that's accretive to the overall deal. Example of that is, traditionally take a $50 million multifamily development where a bank was at 75 to 80% LTC in the past, and now they're in the 55% range. And we're coming in at 15, 20, 25% of that capital stack with a fixed rate product that's a lot lower cost than the alternative of raising additional equity, pref equity, or mezzanine debt. And so in addition to that being a lower cost of capital, it's also long-term, fixed rate, non-recourse. It's flexible prepayment. It's automatically assumable. So there's a lot of benefits to that. In addition, it can be used in very complex capital stacks. So, there's not a whole lot of long-term fixed rate products that's this flexible in prepayment. If you compare it to an agency or CMBS loan that's going to have defeasance or yield maintenance, that could be quite expensive and unknown prepayment in the future in a declining interest rate environment, where we are defined prepayment, and generally on a lot of construction deals, we're at a 1% exit by the time the stabilization of the property happens. So, we're gap capital in that scenario and helping deals that are hard to pencil get off the ground. And we're active in most major product types for development. But we can also come in mid-construction. I think you had touched on that, Dub, where we're seeing deals that had cost overruns, that were delayed, and they need capital to help finish the project. And so we can come in that scenario with the existing lender not having to, restructure their loan, or the sponsor not having to go out there and get additional equity or come out of pocket for additional equity. So we're doing a little bit of that, and I think we'll see more of that in the future. Certainly, we're doing some of the redevelopments for conversions, office to multi, or a hotel that needs is changing its flag and has a big PIP. PACE can be used for that. There's a lot of flexibility. It just has to be something being done in the asset that's affecting the utility spend. So one other opportunity where we're seeing a decent amount of business currently, and I think you'll see going into 2025, is the refinance, the ability to, within post C of O, 2 years post C of O, to recap or refinance an existing deal for PACE measures that they had previously done. So we're seeing deals that maybe were delayed, they're just coming online, and they need a bridge to stabilization. They maybe need to restructure or replenish their interest reserve. Maybe they need maybe we'll come in and recap out a higher cost piece of the capital stack, but the sponsor doesn't want to sell into the current market environment, and maybe the perm rate for refinancing aren't there yet because they're not stabilized. So we can provide that bridge and be flexible to stay on, after stabilization, or they can pay us off. So I think you'll see a decent amount of that going into 2025. Our pipeline going into the next quarter is very strong, and we're seeing all up and down those use points, the sponsors coming in for that available capital and taking advantage of that. I would say, some of the trends we're seeing is, more well-heeled developers, being open and exploring and desiring PACE in the capital stack. It's just an education process for, it's becoming more and more out there in the market of people recognizing the benefits and understanding it better. And with that education process is also on the senior lender side, where, part of the pushback, can be, finding a consenting lender that consents to PACE in the capital stack. But I believe we're seeing more and more lenders that are understanding the product and how it can benefit them, and being able to, manage their balance sheet, being able to, partner with us to provide the client a better capitalized deal. And we're seeing that in regards to, half the deals that we do are still with new lenders. And so I think you'll see more and more adoption coming into next year, and we're certainly excited at the possibilities.
All right. Well, great, Brian. Yeah, appreciate you sharing those thoughts, and we'll see if some questions are generated, and we'll see what we think we should have time at the end to take a look at those and provide some responses. So let me, from a TPA, Texas PACE Authority perspective, go into a couple of things for 2025 that we see and we have planned. And the first one, and this is, I think, kind of validates what Brian was talking about in terms of the opportunity. And let me explain what's on this slide and what's on this chart. So the U.S. Department of Energy a few years ago put together what they call their building energy and building market assessment tool for CPACE. And this is something where for any city in the country, I think 100,000 or more, and counties probably same limit, you can run an assessment, and it pulls together real estate market data. It pulls together relative sort of energy efficiency of components that were in place at the time, typical age of buildings. The CoStar is the key data set on the commercial real estate side that goes into this. And then it develops sort of the output is, it tells you, by building type, where the opportunities are, where there are, buildings that qualify for CPACE based on criteria set at the state level. So in Texas, for example, we have what's called an SIR requirement, a savings to investment ratio requirement, that is factored in. And so again, these reports can be run for any city in county, and we've done that for the cities and counties we serve. And then working with the developers at the Pacific Northwest National Lab, we sort of backward engineered and said, well, if you're calculating projects that or project opportunities and savings associated with SIR, that means you've got a cost factor in there somewhere too. And so we got all that data. And if you take all of that information and you apply it to the current cities and counties we serve, there are almost 187,000 buildings and about 4.4 billion square feet of projects potentially for PACE that meet the SIR requirement. That the total value of those projects, again, PACE projects that are inherently cost effective and meet the SIR requirement, is $15.5 billion. And the savings for the owners from implementing those projects is $23.5 billion. And because of data set limitations, this excludes certain healthcare facilities, multifamily, and certain industrial. So this is we think this is a pretty conservative estimate, actually. So I mentioned, we're at $500 million in closings. According to this data, again, that's conservative. You're at 15, so we're like at 3 or 4% of that opportunity. So there is a lot of upside, a lot of potential in the state of Texas for PACE projects that, again, are inherently cost effective for owners. So that's the big picture going forward, not just 2025, but really, looking at this very long term. On the policy side, there are a couple of things. I mentioned SIR, the requirement, and the four main things we look at from an underwriting perspective are SIR, loan to value or loan to cost, and the loan term, and then also mortgage holder consent that Brian mentioned. Two of these are undergoing review to sort of modernize and look at what's happening around the country, how the markets have evolved, and what changes need to be made. And I'm going to talk about what's being proposed in a second. Just real quick on mortgage holder consent, I'd agree we see more new senior lenders in projects. Brian mentioned this. So I think with more PACE projects, not only in Texas, but across the country being completed, senior lenders can better understand what those look like and what the risk profile from their perspective is. We maintain on our website a list of Texas lenders that have provided consent to PACE assessments. And then also PACE Nation has a resource similar to that, but it's national in scope. So you can see the lenders that have provided consent. The other thing we have is that for HUD approval, we were required to get an opinion from the state attorney general's office as to whether a PACE loan was consistent with and constituted essentially a ad valorem tax, or was it essentially a private loan? And the opinion there from the attorney general's office now a few years ago, also on our website, is that a PACE assessment is similar to an ad valorem tax, which is what the senior lenders like to see and need to better understand. So a lot of resources there as well. So I'm going to jump into the changes that are being considered for SIR and LTV. And the way that this works is there's a group called Keeping Pace in Texas. It's really the policy setting body for CPACE in the state. This started off as a volunteer group of almost 300 people. Once the enabling PACE legislation was passed, that was the framework, but there needed to be details. So this is really kind of a set of model best practices, things that have been used successfully around the country. And periodically, these are reviewed and these standards are updated. And then those updates become the new standards for use statewide. So savings to investment ratio, this is a pretty big change that's being considered. And it's a little in the weeds unless you've done these projects before. Currently, the way savings to investment ratio is calculated is all of the costs for the project, including the cost of the financing, are in the investment side, the investment part of the equation, or the cost part of the equation. And if you're looking at a, fully amortized, 25, 30-year loan, the interest cost can be as much as a project. And so that means that you're, trying to find enough savings to offset that cost. And that can be a challenge. And there have been some projects that didn't clear those hurdles and fell away and didn't qualify. So the proposal here is to remove the interest rate or the interest cost from that equation. So essentially it would be a simple payback approach. And this is consistent with, not only how other states that have an SIR are doing it, but also there is a state managed revolving loan fund that is for public energy efficiency projects. Simple payback is used there. Simple payback is used in the utility efficiency programs that are overseen by the Public Utility Commission. So this seems like a, kind of a likely change that should be adopted, probably if not by the end of the year, just after the first year. So the effect here is that in terms of how much an owner can utilize PACE for in a project, that will go up significantly with this change to the SIR. So the projects likely will get bigger. The owners will be able to do more utilizing PACE, and things that maybe fell out of scope because of this SIR constraint maybe now will fit in, and the projects can move forward again in an integrated manner. The other piece here is there can still be variances. So even with this sort of more generous SIR allowance, there may be the need to vary from that. An SIR less than 1. And so if there are definable community, environmental, other benefits that can be identified, then that would be the basis for the variance. So it's not clear right now exactly what those variances would be tied to. And so fleshing that out a bit is going to happen as well. The other big change that's being considered is the loan to value limitation. So the maximum PACE loan can be as much as 25% of the as complete or as stabilized value of a property. The change there is looking to increase it probably at least to 30, potentially to 35%. So again, creating more headroom so owners can use PACE for more of their project, and again, really address buildings on a systems level versus an individual component level. So we expect those changes to probably go into effect, right after the first of the year, certainly first quarter, if not the first couple of weeks of January. So look for that. So our role in all of this is companies like Brian's Bidder Lenders. There are many PACE lenders that are active in the state. If you look kind of below this line, a PACE transaction really is a private transaction. Property owner has a need. They work with a contractor or a service provider to scope and identify the project. Then they identify a capital provider to help with the financing. So that's really kind of the private transaction. The activities above the line here are really a governmental transaction. So cities and counties that offer PACE programs, if they wanted to create a PACE department to run them, they could. None have. And so what they do is they outsource that PACE administration. And so our organization, Texas PACE Authority, we're a nonprofit. We were created 11 years ago specifically to serve the needs of cities and counties that wanted to offer PACE programs. So that's all we do. So our focus is to really serve as a quality control agent to make sure that projects meet all the requirements under state law, handle all of the administrative actions around the project, work with all the parties, and manage the transactions on behalf of the cities and counties. That's we're not a lender, we're not a service provider, and we're not a property owner. So we're really just that extended city or county staff. And the process that we follow looks like this, kind of 2 phases. Pre-application, post-application. I won't read all these things, but just kind of a logical flow from scoping to identifying your service providers, applying, first, test in, test out, sort of technical reviews, and then verification at the end. And it's a pretty straightforward process, but there are a lot of details. This is a real estate, financing transaction. So there's a lot of paperwork involved, and we recognize the challenges that can present. So some of the things we're doing in 2025, first of all, I should say, it looks, I agree with Brian, just turning the corner into 2025. There are about $82 million in the project pipeline in various stages that we're looking at. So we expect most of that to mature and others to add to it. TurboPace, this is kind of a name we're using internally for a more streamlined system to allow smaller projects to access PACE. Look at using some things like deemed savings versus bespoke engineering for savings calculations. There's a whole lot of commercial buildings, multifamily, other smaller projects that could access PACE if the process was smoother and simpler for them. So this would be an automation, but also an administrative change as well, really targeting kind of smaller projects. This next bullet, so direct referral program for owners and lenders. So we get inquiries from owners all the time, and they're looking at PACE, and they said, what lender should we talk to? And again, being the administrator, we can't make a direct recommendation. We do have all the lenders we qualified on our website. So this is really kind of a modern version of what lending, the kind of the lending tree model, the way that started, where if an owner would like us to share their project characteristics with a pool of lenders that have also indicated interest in receiving that information, then we can help make that connection. And so, lenders essentially would set criteria. We're looking for these types of projects and these locations for these dollar amounts. If you have any that come through your system, please forward them. So more of a connection there versus owners that may just walk away and say, well, I don't even know where to start. This is a way to help them through that first phase. On overall transaction efficiency, we can always do a better job with customer experience, and so we're working on that. Automating systems versus kind of passing documents and paperwork back and forth through email through our Salesforce application. Reducing overall friction. This is a thing we talk about a lot. I mentioned Teresa Smith joined us in July, and every other word out of phrase out of her mouth is reducing friction in the process. So making things work smoother and being cognizant of the deal cycle and ensuring that targets are met for closing and other requirements. And all of this, the transaction efficiency cannot compromise really the integrity of the program. So doing all of this while maintaining these really high standards of transparency and accountability that have been part of our operation since the outset. So that's what we've got going in 2025. And to kind of wrap things up today, resources and then some Q&A opportunities. So everything that I've covered and more is on our website, which is here. Again, you'll receive this slide deck later, and we'll have the links in it. The program guide and technical standards is there. All the policy pieces I've mentioned are there. The manufacturing project I highlighted is featured in a case study, as are many other projects. Those are there on our website as well. The service provider directory, I showed you a snapshot of that earlier, that has the lenders, other service providers. That's a resource that's available. And then events like this and other training are listed there on our training page. And just to see what that looks like right now. So obviously we're here on the 12th, and this is the webinar you're in. In January, we have a couple planned, an in-person workshop down in the Valley. And then another one of these webinars focused on REAP, which is the Renewable Energy for America program. This is managed by the USDA and is a great complement to PACE, where owners, and these can be rural agricultural producers, but also rural small businesses, can access grant funds through USDA to buy down the cost of projects, and then PACE can finance the balance. So we're going to talk about that in January. So questions, we'll move to questions. Here's my email and here's Brian's email. And I'll stop sharing my screen and see if any questions have popped up. Or if you'd like to raise your hand, if you're an attendee, and I will recognize you if I can. So any questions? I don't see anything in the chat. We'll leave this open for just a second. Okay, let's see. Here's a question. Are there any projects for solar / clean energy in the works? Their PACE has been used for solar quite a bit, not only in Texas but across the country. It's a great fit. The economics of solar are a little more challenging in Texas than in places like California or Hawaii, where there's higher electric rates, but our units of consumption are higher than some of those places as well. So it tends to pencil out, these days, maybe in about 15 years, 10 to 15 years, where it used to be much higher. And so you need to tie some longer term financing to a solar project, and PACE has been used for that. We've had several solar transactions. We have several in the pipeline. So yes, are there any projects for solar? Yes. Clean energy is sort of broadly defined. I think, again, from a Texas perspective, if it is energy efficiency, demand reduction, on-site distributed renewable energy, or energy generation of any type, really, it's technology agnostic. It could be a gas turbine on the customer side of the meter. All of that is potentially eligible. So yeah, there are projects in the works like that, and there have been projects that have been completed like that. So thanks for the question. Okay, not seeing anything else. And here we got about 10 or 11 minutes left of your hour. We'll go ahead and kind of wrap up early. And again, look for other events that we have planned for January and beyond on our events page. Brian, thank you again for joining us today. Appreciate your perspective, and thanks to the attendees for joining us. And have a happy holidays and a great new year, and we will talk to you soon.